Ciao, ciao, dosto. Welcome to another episode of Calcio Charcha. As always, I'm your host Param here, the in-house interista. And आज हम एक बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग टॉपिक के बारे में बात करने वाले हैं बिकॉज हम बार बार बोलते हैं यार सेरिया हैज टन्स ऑफ स्टोरीज टू ऑफर. सेरिया में बहुत अजीब चीजें होती है, बहुत वियर्ड चीजें होती है, एंड फॉर द राइट रीजन, सम फॉर द रॉन्ग रीजन. एंड दिस टाइम टुडे वी आर गोइंग टू talk about a team that has been making the headlines for all the wrong reasons, unfortunately. And that club is obviously Fiorentina, जो सेरिया में लास्ट बैठी है. अगर आपने मे बी सेरिया ये सीजन फॉलो नहीं किया, फिर कम फॉलो किया, yes, it is quite shocking to hear that a club like Fiorentina, that even casuals will think is sitting last on the table after 17 match days, and that's just crazy. And yes, they just lost to Parma yesterday. पर ये सब के बारे में हम बात करेंगे, इन डेप्थ बात करेंगे, क्या इश्यूज है, किधर, वेयर एवरीथिंग वेंट रॉन्ग, breaking everything down to the best extent possible. But to do that, on that occasion, I just have the perfect person with me because he's a Man United fan. He's seen the Man United side of struggles. And in the Serie A, he has a soft spot for Fiorentina, unfortunately. Even they're struggling. I have obviously Costo with me, the editor of Get Italian Football News. How are you doing, Costo? How's everything going?
Good, good. Very depressing considering the Fiorentina form. But not like I'm not used to it. But 20th is not something I'm used to it. So
Yeah,
fresh territory, new struggles. One
yeah.
positive to it is that I'm facing new struggles, new experiences in life.
न्यू एक्सपीरियंसेस. मैन यूनाइटेड का काफी हो गया तो फ्योरेंटीना ने भी सोचा कॉस्टू को और तंग करना है हमें. बट फनीली इनफ, आई गेस एज यू सेड, बिफोर वी गेट इनटू एवरीथिंग, इट्स नॉट न्यू टू फ्योरेंटीना बिकॉज ये 2020 के भी ऑलमोस्ट एक बार रेलीगेट होने
Hmm.
वाले थे. They were fighting with Parma in the 17th place. That's when they had Federico Chiesa. That's when they had Dusan Vlahovic, which is we'll dive
Montella
into this.
returning.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this, Costo, obviously. But I just, let's set the context, right? Let's set the context. Let's get into it. I want to kind of set the context for people here because ये एक unusual चीज है जब आप एक kind of your regular mid table team, you should say, or regular surviving
Upper
team in the
mid
league.
table.
अगर अगर मैं प्रीमियर
Hmm.
लीग फैंस के लिए कंपेयर करूं तो दिस इज ऑलमोस्ट लाइक एन एवर्टन ऑलमोस्ट बीइंग लास्ट.
Aston Villa, Everton, or something like that.
Aston Villa, Everton types, basically. Because Everton,
Hmm.
I brought up the Everton example because, like, we've seen Everton get close to the relegation
Yeah.
zone, right? But they've not gotten relegated. Same with Fiorentina in the recent years, I'm saying. And
Hmm.
it just feels strange that, kind of Fiorentina is there. And आप जब उनकी स्क्वाड देखो, जो हम बात करेंगे, जब आप प्लेयर्स देखो, it doesn't, obviously they're not nowhere close to the, let's say, bottom three teams in quality wise, bottom five be, bottom seven be. They're not that bad. So again,
Yeah.
what has happened? Where did it all go wrong? किधर ownership level पे, management level पे, players, everything. We'll all look at it. The stadium, जो हम बार बार बोल चुके हैं स्टेज पे, कंस्ट्रक्शन साइट जैसा दिखता है ऑलमोस्ट. अगर आप बॉम्बे में कहीं घूमो, कोई बड़ी बिल्डिंग बन रही है, या फिर दिल्ली में, आई गेस ऑल ऑफ अस आर यूज्ड टू सीइंग दिस. सो लेट्स गेट इनटू द क्रक्स ऑफ इट, कॉस्टो. Of course, pehle mein na, to start things off, let me talk about the recent game that happened yesterday. I will pull it up as well. Parma won, Fiorentina nil. Oliver Sorensen ने winner मारा. इस पे ज्यादा बात नहीं करेंगे, but just a brief look into show that Fiorentina, after their 5-1 win, the first win of the season against Udinese, just went back to losing ways, sorry. And funnily enough, I know Vanoli को लाया था वो थोड़ा tighten up करने के लिए, डिफेंस को सेट पीसेस से बेटर करने को, पर yesterday they conceded from a set piece. Just brief thoughts, if you saw that game, just brief thoughts as we then break down every other issue later on.
Honestly, I don't think uh, the if you look at the larger picture, I'm just doing XG wise. Fiorentina ka attacking output has actually not been bad. I mean, they are last in the table, but they actually have the third best XG in the league,
Yeah.
which is really funny because Abhi will probably talk about it later, 1992, 93 season as well. उस time Fiorentina were known to be a pretty good attacking side. They उनका goal difference was barely negative. And this season it's fairly similar because कल भी it's not like Fiorentina didn't really have chances, but it's like they were not really making more of it. I mean, it's a classic Jurgen Klopp thing where you say that it's not a chance, it's an opportunity. That sort of thing where they're doing something, but they're just not adding that final touch to it. And वो पूरे सीजन का स्टोरी रहा है और a lot of time they're just casually missing chances as well, which is why they're underperforming on XG the most in the league. Moiskin being the guilty party in that case mainly. So that's the pattern. It's very rare for them to actually, you know, be perform as per XG or overperform XG. That Udinese game was a rarity because उसमें करा था. You can't really score 5 goals without overperforming on your XG. But Parma के against they sort of went back to mean, I guess, where you concede from a set piece. The team, abhi, you look at them play, you feel like there is so much randomness, especially the fullbacks, kabhi fullbacks. You were seeing them in weird positions here and there. Kabhi they've been instructed to, maraud forward. Other times they're part of the build-up, deep or inverting. It's quite weird, and I think purely because of the fact that the attack looks decent a lot of times. That's probably the only positive. We spoke of it very early in the season. Remember, I guess third game into the season, we were so sure that a back three can't work with that squad. I still feel it can't, and I guess the numbers say that. The defensive numbers in general say that.
Yeah, and I think to set context, right, for Parma Fiorentina, I think you have put it well, because अगर वैसे देखे, अगेन आई जस्ट पुल अप माय स्क्रीन अगेन, तूने एक चीज बोला जो मैं स्टार्ट्स में डीप डाइव करूंगा ही, कि बेसिकली दे हैव नॉट बीन लाइक not creating chances at all, right? I hope this is visible, by the way. Is this visible?
Yeah,
sorry, my bad. So coming back to the point, ऐसा नहीं कि लोग चांसेस क्रिएट नहीं कर रहे, वो लोग कर रहे हैं उनका. अगर तू, मैं स्टैट्स पे आऊंगा, उस पे एक अलग सेक्शन करेंगे, बट as you said, they're third highest for XG in terms of the league. They do create chances, but they can't bury those chances. And it's not just a on pitch issue. There is much more going on behind the scenes that affects these players. कल भी over 1 XG they had their chances again wasted. Moisakin के अलग issues. He's not been the same as last season. अगर तू starting 11 देखेगा, वही rinse repeat. That midfield doesn't, tree of Mandragora, Fagioli, Endor doesn't work. Komuzzo has been a shadow of himself. Again, touching on, we will touch upon this in depth. But yeah, another loss. I saw this game as well, Kostub, and मेरा going into the game week prediction था कि maybe this will be like a draw. I think I predicted a draw or a Parma win. I think I predicted a Parma win. Sorry, correct. I predicted a Parma win because I know Cuesta also fumbled in that game versus Lazio, but still, I could get that feeling that यार Fiorentina के against कैसे तो ये bounce back कर लेगा, and unfortunately for La Viola, that's what happened. And okay, this game aside, another bad game. What can you say? And अगर context थोड़ा फिर से set करे, they sit 20th in the table, 9 points, 10 losses, 6 draws, 1 wins, 28 goals conceded, as many as Torino, which is the worst in the league, and 17 scored only, which is the same as Torino, which is वो एक अलग ही टॉपिक है टोरिनो के बारे में. But coming back on track, it just tells you how bad Fiorentina have been. I've been vouching for Pisa, for example. मुझे Pisa in a way as a club, their run मुझे पसंद है, and they're obviously Fiorentina's rivals, and but I know Pisa also haven't beat it. Pisa just simply lack quality. That's why they're bad, right?
Exactly.
They don't have that.
For example, Pisa were actually pretty decent against Juve last night.
Yeah,
and they were if they just had 15% more quality, it could have been a very different game.
Exactly.
But Fiorentina, it's completely opposite.
Exactly. And why did I bring up Pisa here? Because, as you said, right, with Fiorentina, it's completely opposite. Fiorentina has one team had to not be this bad. They have the team to be in the top 10 and even slightly better. But where did it all go wrong? So, Kosto, I'll stop sharing my screen. Let's first talk about it, right? I know Pioli pe aayenge hum log, but I want to see. I know Rocco Commisso as an owner is extremely culpable. Usne bahut galtiyan ki he's not popular amongst the Fiorentina fan base, whether it's abroad or whether it's in the US or whether it's in Italy, wherever around the world. पर मैं एक इंस्टीट्यूशनल वॉइड पे आना चाहता हूँ जो मेरे हिसाब से क्रिएट हुआ है फ्योरेंटीना में. अगेन, जो बारोने, यू रिमेंबर, ऑफ कोर्स, जो बारोने अनफॉर्चुनेटली passed away, I think in March, on March of 19th March 2024, and obviously, like Joe Barone was Commisso's go-to right-hand man. He was there at Fiorentina बहुत सालों से था. And yes, I can see he also made mistakes with Commisso, whatnot, and he wasn't perfect either. But एक जो बरोने ने एक I think एक quality और एक standard कुछ तो establish किया था Fiorentina
हाँ.
में जो था. अभी obviously since he passed away, they decided not to replace him. Let's say with an international name or external established name, they went for someone known as Alessandro Ferrari, जो उसके job में है, and they got in obviously they obviously had Prade at the time. Prade के sacking पे भी आएंगे हम लोग, and they were like चलो इसके साथ ही आगे जाते हैं, and obviously time passes, here we are fast forward. So just briefly touching upon Joe Barone's void as per you, how big of a loss his passing was, and maybe that has to, I feel that had definitely had to play some sort of a role in things going wrong at the top at Fiorentina. What do you think?
I feel like the larger context is also the fact that the club has dealt with, if you look at the last, 9 years, 8 years, the club has actually dealt with significant losses on and off the pitch. The our story thing and players like Bernardeschi and a lot of players at that point actually said that it deeply affected them. Uh, Especially Bernardeschi, who actually spoke of his mental health issues around that period as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have these on-pitch troubles,
Yeah.
as we mentioned, that pre-2020 is the battles against relegation. Where you have this more recent death. And amidst all of that, you lose two Conference League finals as well. And us time, I was reading a Christian Eriksen interview that he gave to the British press. He was speaking about the Spurs situation and how the Pochettino era ended, and he compared it to how a balloon went off when they lost the Champions League final to Liverpool in 2019. So I feel like it's been like that. It was like a lot of things were adding up till that point, and the recent Joe Barone death and everything. All of that was. It feels like all of that was just piling up to where we are. It just needed one bad decision for things to
Yeah.
just blow apart. Because this is not a lot of things have gone down in the last financially. In terms of financial worries, your instability. You get Pandeli back, you get Yakini back. You play a brand of football which was not what fans would ideally want. You just are operating in survival mode. So it's been a very weird journey, and it feels like a culmination of all of it in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Sorry, go ahead.
And the managerial decision, obviously, the Palladino departure, which we'll come to. So I feel like this is a larger mess than your on-pitch stuff, with the stadium issue as well, which again we'll probably speak of. The entire battles with the municipality, what's going on, and in the middle of it, they have a shiny new training center, which has become that wannabe symbol of, I don't know, modernity, something like that. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in if you look at the club's modern context.
And you're right, because तूने Fiorentina का modern training facility लाई, right? You brought it up. It's called Viola Park, obviously. Sorry about that, Viola Park, and it's a state-of-the-art facility. And Joe Barone was key for getting that done. Obviously, Fiorentina needed that, and Joe Barone का एक था, देख, Rocco Commisso, very controversial figure. While he connects with the tifosi or fans, I should say, not, but he didn't have that close relationship like Joe Barone had, because Joe Barone at the end of the day was the mediator between the Fiorentina fans and the club, between Fiorentina and the players and everybody else involved. So he was that go-to guy, and while he made mistakes, he was definitely, in my opinion at least, liked more than Rocco Commisso, because he knew how to kind of mediate things even with other parties or contemporaries, I should say, like, दूसरे clubs के साथ कैसे handle करना, बातचीत करनी है मेरे को. Again, look, am I the biggest Fiorentina fan? Do I kind of like them? No, because they have this weird habit of kind of going after every club for whatever reason and not acknowledging their flaws. But at least Barone used to kind of mediate that and kind of handle these situations. I know situations where Fiorentina on social media, how some Italian clubs have this weird habit of taking pot shots They have been guilty of that, obviously. But Baroni always was that guy, for that reference point for Fiorentina, right? जो बड़ी बड़ी डील्स करता था, जो काइंड ऑफ एटमॉस्फेयर से भी रखता था,
Exactly.
he was the go
Because
to
if you
guy.
look at it,
हाँ,
Rocco Commisso would constantly mention that, oh, we're not, the public stance indirectly was always that, oh, we're not dealing with Juventus.
yeah,
Whereas what privately has been going on is that they're actually selling players to Juve. And Juve players are also coming in regularly, ex-Juve players or current Juve players. It's like that Napoli De Laurentiis dynamic,
yeah,
but secretly they're operating in a different way, and that was largely because of Baroni, because he understood how it should really work. If you're getting a 60 million, 70 million package for Chiesa, you can't say no to it in the Italian
exactly.
context.
And that as you
That's
said,
how simple it is.
एग्जैक्टली इटालियन कॉन्टेक्स्ट में वो थोड़ा श्रूड, जो श्रूड होने की एबिलिटी थी वो चली गई है फ्योरेंटीना से, ऑब्वियसली. For a club that always had its ups and downs, struggled, and obviously this to close this part of Joe Barone off, simply put, in an era of American owners ever increasing American owners in this area, right? And Rocco Commisso is American Italian, I get it, whatever. But point is, he was that right bridge basically in a way कि हाँ मेरे को business side of things भी समझ रहा है, but I also understand what the Italian game demands. Sorry, and I think while Rocco Commisso is still Italian at core or whatever from origin, now you see that void of Barone not being there because he's acting like the typical American owner who does not know how to run a club, make false promises. We'll come to the stadium issue. It was supposed to get done in 2026 August, but it's been delayed by 3 years, which is insane. Like I thought, एक साल delay होना एक चीज होती है, but 3 साल से delay होना आधा stadium construction के बीच में is insane. Now having not started is one thing, but construction के बीच में, we'll come to all that. So big loss Joe Barone, of course, मतलब he was again a huge figure for Fiorentina. And उससे थोड़ा आगे बढ़ते obviously, Costo, I'll just take a couple of minutes or whatever to talk about this because the financial issues sub Serie A clubs के होते हैं, like all of us have it. Obviously, American owners first come in, they always look to stabilize the club, and American owners को हम बहुत blame करते हैं, rightly so, because they don't run the club with as much passion, let's say, or under their ownership आप बोल सकते हो एक soul कहीं ना कहीं गायब हो जाता है, because they look at money first perspective. And as an interista, I'm also kind of getting a first hand experience. If you read the reports of what Oaktrea are planning to do, they don't know how to analyze stuff, whatever. I don't want to bring Inter into it, but point is, Commisso ne bhi, like Fiorentina have also made certain losses off the pitch, like for a person or for a person who always, Commisso, you know how outspoken he was about कि हाँ Fiorentina is making profits. They used to again put it out on Twitter कि Fiorentina is one of the few clubs that makes profits. Other clubs who make it don't get punished and whatnot. They've also fallen into this trap. I think, if I'm not wrong, they went into a red as well right now. If I'm not wrong, their operating costs are way more than their revenue as well. That again, ये मैं नहीं बोलना चाहता कि ये एकदम बड़ा issue. It is a problem, but this happens to almost all Serie A clubs, so that really isn't surprising to me. I think the debt also went over 120 million, which is again understandable. Again, happens to Serie A clubs, to repeat myself, I think, but the issue here is how they've been managing this financial aspect of things. और हम लोग इधर ये season को लाते हैं because this season they've spent across 90 million. I'm not looking at net spend, I'm just looking at expenditure. 90 million to get all these signings for Stefano Pioli, who was the ex-coach who was hired in the summer, and they got it all wrong. Obviously, Pioli बाद में आया, signings थोड़े पहले हुए थे, but still he came at a point where he did have a say in a kind of few of these signings, and just horrible overall, obviously, for the kind of style they Pioli wanted to play. Again, I'll come to the tactical aspect. None of these signings have made sense. There has been a bad, like, none of these signings, जो हम बात कर रहे थे राइट फ्योरेंटीना के बारे में कि डेप्थ चाहिए उनको हर सीजन, कॉन्फ्रेंस लीग में ये लोग फाइनल तक जा रहे हैं, कोपा इटालिया में फाइनल तक जा रहे हैं, जो भी है सेमीज तक जा रहे हैं, थोड़ा और डेप्थ होता तो ये लोग शायद एक ट्रॉफी तो निकाल पाते, और ये लोग ने वही अटेम्प्ट किया, बट इट वेंट हॉरिबली रॉन्ग. Obviously, Daniele Prade is who I want to come to on this note, because I spoke of finances. As I said, 90 million spent, and yeah, Daniele Prade for you. I feel he's in the Italian football scene. He's been an okay director, but he's always been controversial in the sense of how he manages that budget. Let's say for maybe 1-2 good signings, he'd make or 1-2 good decisions, he'd make 10 errors at the same time, letting a key player go or signing a wrong profile. You want to give any examples? Just briefly expand on Prade's shortcomings in this whole thing, because Daniele Prade did get sacked after they lost at home to Lecce. Yes, they lost at home to Lecce. Obviously, उसने मैच के पहले बोला था कि we need to fight and go into a war against Lecce, and he was the one who got sacked a day before Lecce, before Pioli. So yeah, any thoughts on Daniele Prade? You want to?
I feel like the biggest, the most weird signing has obviously been Roberto Piccoli. Cagliari absolutely fleeced Fiorentina into paying that over 20 million amount. And Fiorentina showed no hesitation in paying that, despite actually not needing to spend that much, because you managed to keep Moise Kean. There was no need to, and at that point they were almost about to sign Dzeko as well. I'm not saying Dzeko has been a great signing, but that's beyond the point. You have Moise Kean in the side. You are under a manager who operates more on bringing the most out of the best individuals. And then you are complicating the task further by signing Piccoli. And funnily enough, what Cagliari did really well was the fact that उन्होंने media में डाला कि West Ham are interested. Now we never know if West Ham are really interested or not. They probably never were, because Piccoli can't go to the Premier League for reasons we know, because he's not even a Pro 1 Serie A goal scorer. He's touched the 10-goal mark just once in his senior career, which was obviously last season. So I feel like that is the most disappointing signing of the summer. And beyond that, you've seen Cherendure come in. He's never really made a mark. Richardson signed off his international performances more than anything. And that is always a bad call in football if you go IQ-wise, or the fact that history tells you that never sign players at club level on the basis of the international performances. That never really goes well. United saw that with Ahmedabad, although 1 year late, more than a year after the World Cup. So it's just basic errors like that. Cherendure, you can't rely on him even at this point, even though he's played first team football now at Fiorentina. You can't really rely on him to make an impact. I guess the Fagioli move was really good. He's been one of the better players. The Goodmanson move has off-pitch issues. We've spoken of that. The Gozan move has turned out well, but it could have been a different profile, in the sense that we knew Gozan's entire background at international level, at club level. Yeah, he had good games at Union Berlin, and we knew for a fact that Atalanta, it was done. He was physically completely pretty much finished. You scroll down, whenever I've seen that Brecalo signing. That I guess he scored only 2 or 3 useful goals across the stint. Baki, it was just a bit of a mess, and I'm quite surprised that Christian Kwame is still around. The good old Christian Kwame, the Coyote sale. A lot of people actually pretend that selling Michael Coyote has helped us. No, it hasn't. I mean, monetary wise, it did help you get in that capital profit of 15-17 million, plus the loan fee, obviously, the 6-month loan fee. But that in itself, I feel like it's a problem which defines everything, where you fight at the very first step. You are moving on a club youth graduate who was actually really good in his first season. And all of a sudden, you completely drop him out of the squad the very next season without an explanation, and the manager is left to wonder what's really going on. In January, you move him on. And then you are pretending as if, nothing really happened. Whereas you can see he's one of the best right backs in the Premier League at this point. And he's 20 or 21. You brought in Tariq Lamptey, a signing that I still feel doesn't really make sense, because his fitness record over the last 2 seasons at Brighton was horrible. And for someone who is an up and down wing back or a right back, you really need to take care of the fact that these players use their hamstrings and muscle, the intricate muscles of the foot a lot. And Moate, he got that ACL injury and he's out for the season. And now Fiorentina are like scrambling to play Fortini. Fortini is good. I mean, again, it's like a pattern where if, say, hypothetically Fortini had played well for Fiorentina last season when Coyote had been loaned out, वो उसको भी भेज देते. That's
Yeah, yeah.
just that's just where we are.
Yeah, and I
And
think फ्लोरेंटीना का वही एक बड़ा इशू है कि प्रादे के अंडर जैसे मैंने बोला राइट, 2 अच्छे डिसीजन 10 गलत डिसीजन, वेरिन कोई अच्छा कर रहा हो
हाँ,
उसको उठा के सीधा बेच देते या फिर कोई इरैशनल डिसीजन लेते हैं. So as I was saying कि 2 अच्छे डिसीजन 10 गलत डिसीजन and it has shown like Coyote का example is a prime example because जैसे तूने बोला कि Michael Coyote was doing fantastic. It's a shame that he doesn't even get called up for Italy and at times even not the U team. But look at what he's doing at Brentford. He's the right profile. He's so versatile, right back, right wing back. And तुमने उसको बेच के लाया fancy name in Tariq Lamptey. I know obviously Tariq Lamptey did have the potential, but this कि वो बहुत injury prone player है. उसको फिर से ACL हो गया. तुम्हारा उधर already backup मार खा गया. फिर तुम डोडो को खिला रहे हो. We know Dodo is a decent player. He's worked hard to get where he is, but he's not the greatest right wing back. Like to the point where I know he's been linked as a Denzel Dumfries replacement at Inter, but he's someone I don't want because there are obvious flaws to his game. He's a very short-tempered player, and now he's also looking to leave Fiorentina. So तुम किसको खिलाओगे बाद में? There are again, as you said, budding some youth players like Fortini, पर Fortini को भी शायद ये लोग बेच दे. Again, it's a chaos because तुमने कायोडे जैसा टैलेंट ऐसे ही जाने दिया. एंड वील कम टू द पलाडिनो इशू लेटर बिकॉज दिस इज व्हाट पिस्ड हिम ऑफ एज वेल, राइट? बिकॉज तुम कायोडे जैसे टैलेंट को ऐसे ही जाने दे दिए, पार्ट ऑफ मेनी रीजंस. एंड let me just quickly show
And
you
you
the
know, honestly, the people around Coyote, they've actually been very kind to Fiorentina. They've actually been very respectful to the club, saying that, it was the club that turned him into the player that he is, and all of that. They've said that, he loves the club and everything. Whereas the fact that there was no communication from anyone about the fact that why is he even not playing? A lot of times he wasn't even in the squad. वो कॉन्फ्रेंस लीग में खेल रहा था, बट इन द लीग he was barely given minutes. A lot of times, as I mentioned, वो bench पे भी नहीं था, and there was no accountability on that part. People around Coyote can easily go off about it, but they just choose to remain silent out of the players' love for the club.
Yeah, and that's a fair point, to be fair. Yeah, a lot of times Coyote didn't. And look, let me just show you the business again, right? ये सीजन का ट्रांसफर बिजनेस है. ऑब्वियसली जनवरी के पहले, अगर ये जनवरी में अपलोड होता है तो दिस डज नॉट इंक्लूड द 2026 विंटर मार्केट. लेट मी शो यू. रोबर्टो पिकोली 25 मिलियन एंड 2 मिलियन इन बोनसेस. जैसे कॉस्टुम ने बोला, इधर स्टोरी क्या थी? क्या Fiorentina dialed Cagliari saying is Piccoli available, we are ready to pay 27 million, 25 million, and Cagliari were themselves shocked कि अरे वाह, ये लोग 27 मिलियन या 25 मिलियन बोले, let us just play along. And they thought Fiorentina मजाक कर रही है, शायद बैक ट्रैक करेंगे, and it actually happened. Cagliari played along with a joke. ये मैं सीरियस हो रहा हूँ, अगर आप ये वीडियो देख रहे हो, this is a serious story that Cagliari played along on a joke, and they actually managed to sell Piccoli for 25 million, which, as me and Kostub discussed, he's a decent player, but for a striker who's going to not be a starter, right? And it's not like Fiorentina those striker खेल रही थी ऊपर, and it's not like Keane and Piccoli are suitable enough to play together as well. For a backup striker, essentially you paid 25 million, and a striker who had only scored 10 goals for the first time ever in his career. Just
And
insane.
actually, Cagliari had signed him permanently
Yeah.
2 months before he actually left from Atalanta.
Yeah.
And they made a massive profit from the deal as well, which they would chew your hands off if you were offered a deal like that.
Absolutely, and it shows you like a club like Cagliari on the opposite end acting very shrewd, but then उसके बाद के signings देखो आप. Goodmanson signing has never worked out. I know एक बार वो demand में था, Inter, Juve, whatnot, but whatever his on-pitch issues were, whatever it is, this guy has not clicked. Obviously, भी last दो गेम के बीच में उसने goals मारे जो भी है, but that's not enough to justify what was spent on the guy. You signed on a loan plus obligation from Genoa. Fagioli, I know उसके बारे में बहुत बात किया जाता है, Costo, and fair enough, I get why people speak of the talent, but he has just too many off games. Like the consistency throughout a 90 for me just miss. It's very hit and miss. Yeah,
drifts in and out more like.
Yeah, and Simon Som, obviously Som is a very Indian name, but Simon Som, like भाई मतलब Parma में मस्त था, and I guess he's fallen trap to this chaos at Fiorentina. He has again not been at that level. Fazzini Empoli में क्या decent player था.
Actually, just for I read a Som ka interview 2 weeks ago. Som mentioned something very similar to what you've just said. That he mentioned, I can't remember the exact quote, and he clearly mentioned that a rot has settled in along those lines.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it just feels like he has probably been affected because during pre-season he was actually really good. He was carrying the ball forward in his trademark way, but since the season has started off, पता ही नहीं, you can't really identify who he is.
Absolutely, absolutely. And वो एक है फिर याकोबो फजीनी आई नो उसका भी थोड़ा बीच में एम्पोली में चल रहा था लल पीरियड बट देन you went on and you risk spending 10 million thinking that the kid will click right away. ऐसे नहीं होता है. Look, I know Empoli are known to develop fantastic talent and they are that club that will always develop players youth level पे, but Fazzini थोड़ा स्ट्रगल कर रहा था, तुमने उस पे जाके 10 मिलियन उड़ा दिए. ठीक है, Gozens I can still understand you redeemed the guy because he had performed well the year before, but still now he's not even a starter. उसके भी injury issues तुम जानते हो कॉस्टो में, even when he was at Inter they were there. एंड तरीक लैम्प्टी हमने ऑलरेडी बात की, तुमने उस पे 6 मिलियन उड़ा दिए, वो एसीएल के साथ बाहर है. हांस निकोलुसी कविलिया has probably been like that one disappointment cost because वो अच्छा था लास्ट सीजन वेनेजिया के लिए एंड वो बट पियोली के स्टाइल को फिट नहीं किया. एंड देन वंस एज यू सेड सिमोन सोम ने जैसे बोला, वंस दैट रॉट सेट्स इन इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू गेट आउट. देन इमान कॉस्पो इट्स ही इज एक्चुअली डिसेंट रेटेड टैलेंट, बट तुम ऐसे टैलेंट को लेते हो फिर उसको खिलाते भी नहीं हो. I mean, ये सेरिया का typical, I mean, या फिर Italian football में एक थोड़ा problem है.
I mean, the weird part, and I've actually mentioned this on our groups as well, कि Fiorentina literally have Eddie Cardio in the youth squad, and he's actually very highly rated among the people who worked around him, and a lot of clubs have been looking at him. Fiorentina have also tried to tie him down to a larger contract. And he played in pre-season. I guess he played against United in that friendly, and he did quite well. That part, that 3-week period, he was actually very much playing in the first team. And I saw that and I looked like this is someone who should be playing in the first team. And then you bring in a kid from the Barca Youth Academy. It sends out a wrong message for that youngster that you have in the squad as well. So that's just bad planning in a way.
And मैं अगर अभी फॉर एग्जांपल जेको का भी एग्जांपल लूं, we'll come to Pioli and Palladino after this and Italiano. पर जेको वो आया, look, I understand he was like more of a third choice striker to play in other competitions, I get it, and he was still doing fine in the Turkish Super League for Fenerbahce. Obviously Turkish Super League की quality गिर चुकी है, but still I understand why you signed him. But I always felt when Bologna were in for him, that made more of a sense for him to go there rather than Fiorentina. And then I have Pioli. He did not get along with Pioli. He called Pioli out publicly saying that, things need to change. He needs to take into account players' suggestions, which Pioli was not doing. And Pioli ne bola, maybe I should. So Pioli had obviously lost. He could not control. Once you cannot control a senior veteran like Dzeko, who's 40, who's seen it all, who's played in this league with most of these guys, Costo, who's at least played against, if not with as well. You already basically then lose the dressing room, which you're already losing, right? It's not that simple.
Yeah.
Check. Let me just close this transfer section off. Then तुम्हारी incomings थे cost. तुमने बेचा Nico Gonzalez, which I feel is fair. He was going to leave at some point. चलो, I won't blame them for that. 28 million I feel is fair. जो Atletico को बेचा fair. Obviously UA से गया eventually, but this obviously includes that, I think, that period as well. Coyote.
Yeah.
Look, Coyote we discussed. I don't want to get into the big error over there, big own goal over there. Sofia Amrabat, I think उसकी ship sail हो गई थी cost of that World Cup. Obviously he overperformed, and I understand, and he also always wanted to leave Fiorentina. Won't blame. तुमने Jonathan Ikone को बेचने में बहुत देरी कर दी, उसको लिया ही क्यों in the first place? That's another question. Lucas Beltran.
And Ikone was past it by the time he joined as well. His peak at deal had gone away by that point.
Exactly. I agree. मतलब तुमने worst signing like Ikone लिया, तुमने Beltran never fit in. Mbala, Enzola, why? I mean, I can understand why they signed Enzola because of Spezia में अच्छा किया था. I never understood the Ricardo Sottil signing. I was never a big fan. I know he's the son of coach Andrea Sattil, जो Serie B में coach करता, but he's not a great player. I never understood why did you sign Matias Moreno, उसको निकाल दिया. Cristiano Biraghi के captain, I understand. चलो उसका भी मैं कुछ नहीं बोलूँगा. I think one of the most confusing signings has to be someone like if where am I like someone like an Oliver Christensen, मतलब उसको तो खेलने का चांस दिया ही नहीं, barely दिया,
Yeah.
उसको दिया,
Yeah,
उसने
yeah.
उसने एक एरर किया, उसको नहीं बिठा दिया बेंच पे for
Hmm.
Terracciano. Colpani was a waste. I know he was on loan, but Colpani भाई मतलब I know Italy में उसको बहुत hype किया था, but sorry Costo, waste signing, never really even fit in
Yeah.
under Palladino. And I understand बोवे के साथ जो हुआ बहुत unfortunate था, so उधर मैं कुछ बोलना नहीं चाहूंगा. Obviously that's something beyond their control, you know, whatever happened, but overall I think it's fair to say,
And
as
again,
you say, it's a fucking waste of
we were
90
talking
millions.
about tragedies. That Bove incident was also shook a lot of people at that point,
A
because
tragedy.
it brings back a lot of memories to them.
Exactly.
And I guess that also played a
Fair.
role. That the season turned out well, but still the entire situation did become bleak at one point. It
Yeah.
मतलब,
And just
to a lot of players, it felt like होता है ना जैसे dark shadow lingering and all of that.
yes, I understand, like basically effects ऐसे हुए Fiorentina के साथ, ऐसे incidents पे that has obviously left a lingering effect. But अगर तू बाकी का squad दे, obviously I will give some credit कि there has been some decent business. We were first doubters of Della, and obviously he's not had the greatest of seasons. He did do very well last season, and थोड़े flashes of late he's been all right. Then Komuzzo has been, again, players पे मैं आता हुआ, I don't want to fully एकदम first I'll come to the coaches, then we'll come to the players. This is just me taking stock of Daniele Prade's business as a sporting director, Commisso's approvals on these deals, centre back issue largely not solved. Matlab, how do you think Marin Pongracic and fucking Luca Ranieri are going to solve the situations? Like, Luca Ranieri is just a hothead average defender who just likes to complain. We've seen this time and again in the league whenever we watch the guy. Parisi ka situation, him and with the Guifredi, I think Guifredi being his agent causing issues. Dodo renewal up in the air. Share Endor was a very like was always hyped, but तुमने उसको जाके उस पे भी पैसा उड़ाया, जैसा मैंने बोला. Gino Infantino, Mistri, you shipped him off to Alain, obviously in UAE. Abdel Hamid Sabiri, that signing was a flop. वो तो मतलब आया खेला भी नहीं, उसका जो भी behind the scenes issue हुआ, he's still on your payroll. So this is my point being, this part what we're talking about is gross financial mismanagement. I spoke of the losses they've made, and मैंने बोला starting में, right, while finances are not like the biggest issue here, only because all Italian clubs have it, but the way they've mismanaged these finances, Commisso से लेके Prade से लेके all these guys, किसको भी sign करे, मतलब Sabiri again, what was that, Christian Kwame still on the payroll, like it's just insane. So ये मुझे cap off करना था. Next मैं आना चाहता हूँ राफेले पालाडिनो पे, विंचेंजो इटालियानो पे, स्टेफानो पियोली पे. ये थोड़ा अच्छे से रैप अप करेंगे. Italiano was the coach before, obviously. First things first, अगर मैं order में जाऊँ, यार Conference League final cost तुम दो, Coppa Italia final, obviously he lost. Again, you know, I am one of his biggest kind of critics, but to be fair to the guy, he has improved a lot, even in present day at arch rivals Bologna, obviously. And वो एक moment हुआ था जब I think Italiano celebrated against Fiorentina when Bologna beat them, and I think Prade said I think he essentially criticized him for celebrating, but you know, Italiano had every right to, because उसको एक बहुत सार नोट पे निकला Fiorentina, and he was not wrong, because उसने, अब मैं जाके रिस्पेक्ट देख हाइंडसाइट में बोल सकता हूँ, I respect him for what he did at Fiorentina, because we saw Fiorentina, as I said, एग्जांपल दिया कि वो लोग ऑलमोस्ट रेलीगेट हो सकते थे थोड़े साल पहले, जिसने Fiorentina को वापस मैप पे डाला कि भाई मैं बेयर मिनिमम रिसोर्सेज के साथ, मेरे को डिफेंस मेरा थिन है, जो भी है स्क्वाड थिन है, फिर भी मैं इनको 2 कॉन्फ्रेंस लीग फाइनल पहुंचाऊंगा. ठीक है, चलो मैंने उन दोनों फाइनल्स में गड़बड़ कर दी, बट आई गॉट देम देयर. I got them to a Coppa Italia final against Inter, which was never easy to win because that was Simone Inzaghi's Inter, whatever. But still, yeah, Costo, just a brief light you want to shed on Italiano's tenure and what went wrong and why he left, and why do you think he was right in doing so?
I feel like when Italiano was appointed, the squad barely knew how to play the Italiano way of football. Their entire ideology of playing football for 2-3 seasons was the 3-5-2. Just play the direct brand of football, 2 up top, defend deep. The technical flooring of the squad was quite low. And despite not signing too many players in his very first summer, Italiano made such a drastic change to how they were playing in the very first month of his Serie A tenure at Fiorentina, where you could see that the foundations are very much there, and it took him like a couple of weeks to install all of it. And that was the most impressive part about the Italiano tenure. The Conference League finals, two Conference League finals were obviously impressive, but मेरे को सबसे impactful वही लगा था कि this man has turned fullbacks who simply knew how to defend into fullbacks who could actually invert. Say Cristiano Biraghi at that point, the reason why it didn't work out for him at Inter was the lack of athleticism.
Yeah.
He wasn't the, how do I say it? He wasn't the smartest tool in the shed either. He had just one way of playing deep crosses into the final third. At Fiorentina, Italiano came in and absolutely turned him into a different player altogether. So just an example, and I feel like the Italiano exit was meant to happen. I feel like it could have easily happened months before it really happened, but it was a matter of time. And Palladino was a pretty good replacement. It was like you are going from a manager who set the foundation. Now you're going towards a manager who will probably sustain it. Where it went wrong was when Palladino left. I feel like that's when the club completely lost its way, lost all the good work that was done for the last 3 years. Where you appoint Pioli and presume that he can carry forward a very similar playing style, when we all know कि वो title जीता है, but his approach to coaching is completely different, which is what Paulo Fonseca would also confirm when he came in as manager at Milan. He had to completely change the approach from top to bottom, and वो बहुत drastic change था. And you know, I still feel like it should have been Sarri. Sarri was desperate for the job. That Fiorentina actually wanted him, and at the end they somewhat backed off. It should have been him to somehow have a manager who might not win you a title. We know the entire the criticism of Sarri. He's won titles at Chelsea, obviously, and Juve, but he wouldn't have been someone who maybe takes you to the next level. He can. I'm not saying he could not, but you at least have someone in charge who keeps the style to be very possession focused. I feel like even Thiago Motta is not a hyper specific possession oriented manager. He's more of breakdown, play against the opposition press, break them down, and just make those runs in behind. वो possession based नहीं है. That's more like break the press manager or invite the press, more like. Sarri is more sustained possession, and abhi we look at the way Lazio play, you can see that they don't really give in the entire squad. They don't feel like a Sarri squad, and that's been the case ever since Sarri has been at Lazio in his 2 stints, because Lazio were not, they were not meant to be a possession-based team, and there's too much going on for them to play a certain way. Fiorentina, they had the perfect foundation to play the Sarri way and become a side which was completely molded by him. So I feel like it should have been him, but you went to a completely different manager, then went to a completely different manager again. Now we can go to the first manager.
Yeah, and
there is a possibility.
Exactly, and वही that's the funny part, because जैसे हम कोचेस के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, इटालियानो ने जैसे हमने बोला एक फ्लोरेंटीना में वो लोग क्राइसिस से जस्ट निकले थे, they were lacking an identity. इटालियानो ने आके एक आइडेंटिटी दी, kind of started off with like a high press, kind of a high intensity team. Then he realized कि मेरे को थोड़ा adjust करना है with what I have. He knew what he was doing for the larger part, whereas we thought at the time, in real time, it felt like he kind of didn't know what he was doing, and I'm sure he had those moments of loss, but he grew and he learned and he fixed things quickly. उसको पता था मैं 3 at the back खेलूं, पर 3-4-2-1 या मैं जो भी खेलूं उसको बराबर से 4 में कैसे adjust करना है, how to have a controlled shape with a mid block, if not necessarily a high block, because I think इटालियनो के साथ एक मेजर कंप्लेंट रहा है कि उसके टीम्स की जो डिस्टेंस रहती है पोजीशंस के बीच कुछ ज्यादा रहती है, and that's why they usually end up conceding goals, and they at times press too high, but he worked on these things. whatever it was, he did not win a trophy, but he gave them an identity. He got them, like he fixed a mess big time, and usko, he wanted to stay. Let's remember that he had a meeting with
Which
Commisso
is
and what.
what he did at Spezia as well. Spezia had absolutely the lowest wage budget and the transfer budget. He did
Yep,
quite
and
the same. Fiorentina भी वही करा.
he got Spezia to the Serie A after so long.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, अगर आप देखो इटालियन के पहले सीजन मोस्टली हर क्लब लेवल पे they've been good. First to whatever he builds on. Basically, he, for the most part, I should say 90% of the times, he leaves whatever clubs he's coached and left, he leaves them in a better place. He starts thoda wobbly, which is understandable because it takes time. He's a coach that is growing as well. You need to understand that he's not an established coach yet. And I think obviously the only thing missing for him is winning a final, which he needs to. I mean, obviously he's won the Coppa Italia, but more, just winning more in general. Thoda, and apart from that, just leaving him aside, उसने हमेशा कुछ build किया. Then Fiorentina, obviously he wanted to stay. He had a meeting with Commisso and Prade. They could not agree on things. उनके अलग ही ideas थे कि हम, they were too proud कि हम ऐसे ही रन करेंगे क्लब को जैसे हम रन करते जा रहे हैं, हमें कुछ बदलना नहीं है. We're not open to the idea of you wanting certain players or you not wanting to sell certain players. And they parted ways, rightly so. At Italiano ended up at Bologna, obviously arch rivals, and look how they are doing. Look at the last year. क्या 70, how many years was it? 71, right? Or
71, 72.
71, 72, 70, something like that, years after which Bologna
Something
lifted
like
a Coppa Italia. They're back. They're in the Europa League. They looks like they'll make it to the playoffs. Obviously, last season Champions League में wobbly start था. तो wobbly start के बाद भी उसने stabilize किया Bologna को up until recently, where they just lost a home game after over a year. Costume. They had not lost a home game in over a year in the Serie A. So they lost a coach like this, and then they realized it. ठीक है, उसको निकाला तुमने, उसको पलाडिनो के साथ रिप्लेस किया. लेट्स कम टू पलाडिनो ब्रीफली. लेट मी टेक दिस ओवर. पलाडिनो, आई नो उसके बारे में बहुत चर्चा थी. कॉस्टो मोन्जा में बहुत अच्छा काम किया उसने. मोन्जा सेरिया बी से आई थी. सेरिया में स्ट्रोप्पा उनका कोच था. ऑब्वियसली याद है तुझे. एंड स्ट्रोप्पा गॉट सैक्ड. पलाडिनो कम्स इन. फर्स्ट सीजन में मिड टेबल फिनिश मोन्जा को. उसके बाद थोड़ा स्टैग्नेंट था, बट यू नो मोन्जा इन्वेस्ट नहीं कर पा रही थी, फाइनेंशियल इश्यूज से जा रही थी. तो इट वाज क्वाइट अंडरस्टैंडेबल. ही डेवलप प्लेयर्स लाइक कार्लोस अगुस्टो हु नाउ प्लेज एट इंटर. कोल्पानी को उसने करियर दिया फॉर एग्जांपल, एंड लॉट मोर, अ फ्यू टैलेंट हियर एंड देयर ऑब्वियसली. सो पॉइंट बीइंग, दे हायर दिस गाय. वो क्या करता है कॉस्टो? वो वही 3 एट द बैक रिटेन करता है, 3-4-2-1, 3-5-2 ऑलमोस्ट, बट ही मेक्स इट अ टैग बिट मोर कॉम्पैक्ट. Like he knows, because Palladino वो coaches जिसको बैलेंस थोड़ा पसंद है, while they play a vertical game, they like having this kind of controlled mid block where your players are just covering half spaces,
Closer to each other.
yeah, exactly, closing down things. And Palladino was a very good man manager like Italiano. I think Italiano had his own management ways, like top to bottom tha, but he knew how to kind of be the authoritative figure in the right way. Palladino was more like a friend to everyone, right? Being almost unke hi age ka, right? Not too old, right? 38, 39, whatever. And he got it right, Kostub. He got it right. He got them to 6th place. But क्या होता है Kostub, एक सीजन के बाद Palladino भी छोड़ देता है. Why? Because again we are in the same place where the coach cannot get along with Daniele Prade. He cannot get along with Rocco Commisso. And this, let me remind you, Kostub, I know you know this. He signed a 2-year extension before leaving. He signed a 2-year extension until 2027. 2025 में उसने sign किया, and 2 weeks later he was 3 weeks later he was gone. He walked out because he could not agree on many things. Reportedly उसको David De Gea के contract extension में और guarantees चाहिए थे, वो नहीं दे रहे थे वो लोग. That was one. Dodo का एक था. I think if correct me if I'm wrong, there were more players का which he wanted more say in, if I'm not mistaken. I think he wanted a completely different path, and again they lost out on a gem, Costo, because Palladino really कुछ build कर रहा था. And I will come back to Palladino as we talk about Pioli, because obviously we come to Stefano Pioli. Prade thinks it's like some romantic idea कि हाँ हमने Stefano Pioli को the go to Fiorentina man as a coach and as a player उसको वापस ले आ रही है. This is some romantic nostalgic story. Horrible, Costume. We get the worst. And obviously, I thought it would work out right, Costume, because Pioli, I've never rated him as a big coach, but I can understand the guy is an okay coach or a decent coach because he won the Scudetto after all. He was doing all right at Al Nassr before things went bad, like things stagnated there, and he eventually got sacked at Al Nassr as well. So, and then again, when you coach the players of that caliber as well, right, Costume, credibility ban jati hai. फिर एक You're known to at least do a decent job. You coach Ronaldo after all. You coach Brozovic. You coach Sadio Mane. So you can't be this bad. He ended up giving Fiorentina the worst start in their history ever. Never did I think we were in for this ये season में, and just pathetic also 13 wins थे. He got sacked after the 13 games, right? 13 wins बोल रहा हूँ, sorry.
Yeah.
13 wins होते तो sack ही क्यों होता, but yeah, 13 games के बाद he got sacked, and that is the worst ever start in Fiorentina history. To put this stat out, I'm sure many people have heard this. No team in the Serie A has ever survived after being winless after 13 games. And today, here we are after 17 games. Fiorentina have only one win. Kostov, just talk a bit about the Stefano Pioli tenure. Just generally, if you have any stories where this went wrong, how he lost control over the dressing room. जैसे मैंने जेको का incident बोला, how he just could not get them to work tactically, because his approach was between a 3-4-2-1, was between a 4 at the back, but it is much more aggressive. And that midfield जो मैंने तुझे दिखाया, Nicolosi Caviglia, Share Endor, Mandragora is not built for that. It's a very slow midfield. Does not have the physical attributes, and that's where obviously it took a toll. क्या बोलता है? How has he failed to get control of Moisekin, which Palladino got? What do you have to say about this?
I feel like the one thing that Palladino did really well was bring most out of Moisekin by having, अभी हमने बोला कि his teams are a bit more compact, and if you are a bit more compact, it is highly possible that your center forward gets a lot of space to run in behind into.
Correct.
And a lot of Moisekin's goals, and I get it, Moisekin has always been a finisher who can't always be relied upon, but uska off the ball running has always been really good. That's one of his strengths. That's actually his key strength, if anything. And Palladino ने वो देखा, and that instantly suited Moisekin, and he had the best season of his career. And Pioli ka setup changed that, where Fiorentina tried to have more of the ball, but at the same time they could not really bring the most out of their center forward. And wo baki the Dzeko thing, the Piccoli thing, that's a different case altogether, where Keane felt like he's being played to his weaknesses, which is playing against, and that's a natural next step to where you are going as a striker, because you can't always rely on your pace in behind to run into and getting those finishes 1v1. That was the next stage to his development. I feel like that's one place where Pioli went wrong, where you constantly get the sense from Pioli, especially at Milan during that Scudetto winning season, where he's very good at tailoring the system to fit the strengths of players. Whereas at Fiorentina, it became a bit of a mess, naturally, because firstly, the business done was weird. You see a lack of direction, you see random signings being made. On the way, I feel like he just could not really understand how to fix the problems, how to bring the best out of the best players. And the famous, the Chuckle brothers, the Ranieri and the Pongracic duo, they were pretty horrible at that point. They're two players who I feel like they serve no purpose to what Fiorentina are as a club. And the worst part is Ranieri is actually the designated captain, because he's been technically around for a while, even though half the time he wasn't even at the club. But not around the first team squad. Usko captain banaya, which is still funny to me, because he and we've spoken about this, where I remember watching Ranieri play at the Under-20s World Cup. This is probably 2018 or 19 when that World Cup was taking place, and he wasn't even great then for the Italy Under-20s team. And I've never been a big fan of him. He's just he reminds me a bit of Pezzella, the goat of the pre-20s Fiorentina era. Probably not as bad. He does have some good games here and there. But I feel like the business done also impacted Pioli. And funnily enough, there was an entire gap of like 5-6 days before Fiorentina actually agreed to pay a compensation, where they actually agreed to the complete terms, ki kitna paisa dena hai, how much would Pioli want. And that's again a part of the problem, because you can't hire a manager while knowing
Exactly.
that these problems could come up. And so I feel like that's not spoken of enough, where you are constantly seeing in the press that they are struggling to find a agreement over the compensation fee, and that was literally one of the weirdest things I've seen. And there was a point where I was actually scared that they might just keep Pioli just because they could not agree terms to a compensation. And the way things are going, we have speculation now that if Paratici comes in, Pioli can still come back.
Yeah.
That's
We
that's one
yeah.
of the wildest things
we
I've
will
ever
we will
seen. That
come
a
to that.
man,
We will come to the Paratici and whole that saga. But I want to you said it right about Pioli. It the way he left वो compensation नहीं दे पा रहे उसको ये वो obviously it tells you how bad things were कितना सार हो चुके थे चीजें like the relation he lost the dressing room में अगर example दूं I think this was this sorry I'll come to Pioli again but मैं बस बताना चाहता हूँ कि जैसे आपने जैसे you said कि there's been a rot like अभी Paolo Vanoli is the coach obviously the former Torino and Venezia coach I feel he was hard done by Torino obviously because Urbano Cairo is the owner you can't expect
yeah,
anything else Venezia he was fantastic and we know he's a Conte disciple he was Conte's
yeah,
assistant at Inter as well uh, point is obviously it's not like Vanoli is a great coach but he has imprint to do something decent और उसको जब लाया पाउलो वानोली को द फर्स्ट जॉब वाज कि तुम डिफेंस को थोड़ा काइंड ऑफ स्ट्रेंथन करो या मिडफील्ड डिफेंस को स्ट्रेंथन करो ताकि तुम गोल्स ना लीक करो his focus was to kind of हमसे
and the defense has Ranieri and Pongracic.
yeah exactly unfortunately and then obviously the goal was कि तुम set pieces से concede नहीं करोगे ये हुआ and as we discussed at the start of this video कल पारबा के against वही हुआ what can the man do yes at least he can say I got Fiorentina the first win of the season as they beat Udinese 5-1 but again Udinese को उसमें red card मिला था and उधर भी again with like you can see the dressing room is not right because जब वो लोग ने सासुओलो को खेला था and they lost if I'm not wrong yeah they 3-1 lost right 3-1 lost correct and they got a penalty
Yeah.
against Sassuolo and I think it was a public argument between Moise Kean and Mandragora yes Rolando Mandragora जो कैप्टन है और Moise Kean तुम्हारा स्टार है ये दोनों झगड़ रहे कि मैं हम में से एक पेनल्टी लेना चाहता है whereas your designated penalty taker is Albert Goodmanson तो मैच के
And you're
बाद
not winning games.
yeah exactly and you're not winning games तो मतलब चार अलग मतलब ये WWE स्टोरी लाइन चल रही है like तुम रॉयल रंबल को कब कर रहे हो इधर and वनोली को मैच के बाद पूछते हैं कि what happened there like what happened in that situation and obviously I think जो हुआ वो हुआ he's like Goodmanson is anyway supposed to take the penalties he didn't want to step up and then Goodmanson on Instagram says नहीं मैंने step up करने से मना नहीं किया it's just that I don't like to intervene when to like somebody when two of my teammates are arguing in front of a packed crowd एक तो packed crowd मतलब तुम्हारा आधा stadium है but anyways besides the point why are you being pretentious you should have like you being the designated whatever it is I am not here trying to pick sides here I think the larger picture I'm trying to highlight is everything is wrong that nobody is aligned तुम डेजिग्नेटेड पेनल्टी टेकर हो तो तुम दोनों को जाके बोलो कि तुम कैप्टन हो गए और तुम स्टार हो गए फियोरेंटीना के बट मैं डेजिग्नेटेड पेनल्टी टेकर हूं आई एम सपोज्ड टू टेक इट और लेट मी डिसाइड बीइंग द डेजिग्नेटेड पेनल्टी टेकर लेट मी डिसाइड आई एम generous enough to give it to one of the two of you let me decide who gets it right like kyunki Vanoli has just come in he like see maybe he also made a mistake what he said post game
Yeah.
maybe he could have just handled it different on the pitch but वो communication gap रहती है obviously एक वो he could have called somebody or whatever point is he's just coming to the club you can't really blame him for all this he's just coming to a shit show right and he's not used to the Fiorentina chaos and the culture so Goodmanson could have taken leader everybody is like kind of a shadow of themselves right हमने डेहा की बात की performance wise um sorry this guy Dodo is not the same while he's never been that great but he's been underperforming Parisi never hit that level we've been hyping him up to be Hans Nicolosi Caviglia मैंने जो बोला share and were overrated sorry Dzeko falling out with Pioli he's not interested Genoa is looking to sign him De Rossi has asked for 5 signings at Genoa and Dzeko is a target there so he's going to mostly leave nothing is clicking there is Pietro Comuzzo उसके बारे में मैं 1 मिनट बात करूं absolute shadow of himself I was never on that train कि Pietro Comuzzo is like the next एकदम से उसको बास्टोनी के साथ कंपेयर कर रहे थे या उसको कंपेयर कर रहे थे कोई भी यंग अच्छे डिफेंडर से में. नो, ही इज नॉट लाइक दे वर फकिंग सेइंग ही इज बेटर देन समवन लाइक एन एनरिको डेल प्रातो ऑफ पार्मा. नो, like there's no comparison. You saw how he's getting schooled this season. You saw the goal Suchit scored against him. उसको absolutely floor कर दिया. He's not ready. He's been a shadow of himself. Moise Keane के बारे में मैं 1 मिनट बात करूं. While optically बाहर से ऐसा दिखेगा कि he's the one guy performing, scoring, trying on the pitch, but he's had his share of attitude problems which you know of. He's been arguing here and there with teammates. कल के गेम में जो पार्मा में he was extremely selfish. He was like he had teammates open in passing lanes to score.
Yeah.
What did he do? He chose to take a shot. Many occasions he did this, and Fiorentina fans are pissed at him as well, and for the right reasons. He also is apparently looking to leave. He has a 62 million release clause, but he's also at fault. Like he's not stepping up. It's everybody is at fault, and basically, with as we spoke of coaches right now, Pioli specifically, everything is lost in that dressing room. Everyone is at fault. Like I think ये एक और इंसिडेंट था जो आई थिंक ये लोग जब स्कॉटलैंड में गए थे, आई थिंक प्री सीजन खेलने, इफ आई एम नॉट रॉन्ग, they were playing against Hearts, or at least in Hearts का stadium, if I'm not wrong. And उसमें कुछ तो scene हुआ, if I'm just trying to kind of remember this. I think dressing room में कुछ तो झगड़ा हुआ players में. Can you correct me what exactly happened if you recall? There's something that had happened over there. कुछ तो Hearts के dressing room में, I think it was pre-season. Can you just expand on it if you remember it very well? I'm trying to remember.
I remember something happened. If you give me a minute, मैं check करता हूँ.
Yeah, but I think the point being कि obviously everything has been like there have been issues between players. Keane not getting along with the captain, Mandragora not getting along, so and so, people not getting along, people not respecting the coach. Vanoli kya hi karega, and yeah, it looks bad, and Pioli got sacked. Looks like we'll come to Vanoli again, but yeah, nothing looks great at Fiorentina, and we'll just round this off in video in a bit, guys. If you guys are still watching,
it just feels like there's too many players there who don't want to take responsibility, and too many players who are just there for the paycheck.
Yep.
And they're just looking at the next opportunity to leave, and that's where you look at that there is a lack of connection between the upper management and the players. You know, when Vlahovic was at the club, you had Rocco Commisso doing PR for himself while being in a kickabout with Vlahovic, saying that we have Vlahovic at the club, flaunting his ego as if pata nahi kya kar liya hai.
Yeah.
You don't, and that was probably that was probably not done by Commisso. That was probably a plan by the club to somehow make sure that you feel a connection. And if you go back to the early Commisso years, you could see that there is actually a semblance of connection between who he is and who the players are.
Yeah. And
it just feels to be broken.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me just go back thoda to Palladino until you find that Hearts wala story.
Yeah.
Obviously Palladino का interview है जो मैं थोड़ा pull up करूंगा, but when Pioli was about to get sacked, when the players essentially stopped respecting the guy, there was like an emotional disconnect in the dressing room, because उस time पे, if you remember, news आ रही थी कि the players wanted Palladino back, because as I said, उसका एक friendly relationship बन गया था, especially someone like a Moise Keane. वो लोग उसको apparently वीडियो कॉल कर रहे थे, वीडियो मैसेजेस भेज रहे थे, apparently whatnot कि please come back. But obviously he's not going to come back, because he left on such bad terms with the owners, right? And वो क्यों ही आए, मतलब वो अपना करियर क्यों ही आके खराब करे. देखो, now he's sitting at Atalanta as we record this right now. We have Atalanta versus Inter tonight, and he's in good form. He's got them scoring goals. He's got an upgrade. Why will he turn that down, right? And वो भी, you have to remember, Kostub, this is Fiorentina's centenary year, right? If I'm not wrong, this is their centenary year, and this is where they could get relegated. This centenary year, they were trying to turn things around, do something completely else, and yeah, it's just insane that it has come to this. And मैं एक और चीज बोलना चाहता हूँ. देखो यार, players पे बात किया हमने, coaches पे बात किया. I need to come to some numbers before I come to the stadium issue, because the stadium issue, Costo, plays a very big role as we wrap this video up in a bit. I'll bring that up, because तूने जैसे बोला XG wise वो लोग बहुत create करते, वो लोग third best है. Moisakin का भी XG देखेगा तो पूरे सीजन का, if I'm not wrong, it reaches 10 or something, and he's obviously scored only like what 4 goals if I'm not wrong. 4 goal मारे उसने,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that is not a good outlook. And not just that, I have an interesting stat here with me where it says that so you have that finishing efficiency which I spoke of. There is a 25-point deficit stat, Kosto. Hear this out. This I'm going back to match day 14 only because this is when it was the largest. When they had 6 points after 14 match days, that is 25 points fewer than they had in the last season. And this shattered the previous Serie A record for the largest year-on-year points drop at the stage held by Roma in 2004-05. I mean, Ajay bhai को ये देख के सेक्शन मजा नहीं आएगा, but Fiorentina has managed to break that in their centenary year. ये एक नंबर था, मैंने ऑन पिच भी दे दिए. अगर हमने टैक्टिक्स बात कर लिए, let me just quickly pull up a few numbers for Fiorentina statistically very quickly where they rank stat wise. Yup, here it is. I hope this is visible, Costo. So you have एक तो I know Rolando Mandragora एक ऐसा मिडफील्डर है जो गोल्स मारता है, but sorry यार, the guy, if that guy is, and I know इस सीजन से एरिया में कॉस्ट ऑफ गोल्स कम पड़ रहे स्ट्राइकर से. Lautaro has just reached that and Pulisic भी उधर ये just आया है, him being an attacker more than a striker, but you get my point. Rolando Mandragora cannot be your go-to guy for goal scoring and when you create so many chances. ठीक है, Fagioli भी 2 असिस्ट, मतलब मैं क्या बोलूं, Keane के goal contributions have been too, like forget football rating and all, I'm not getting into that, but let me, जैसे मैंने बोला Moisakin का तो XG देख और रोलांडो मंद्रोगोरा का XG देख, 2.8 में 5 गोल मार चुका है और Moisakin 10 में 4 पर 90 भी तू देख, like क्या चल रहा है इधर. And you just see this, okay? XG on target 6.3. Kane again, he needs to score more. Pioli से मैं ज्यादा anyways expectations नहीं रखता हूँ. तू अभी ये देख ले. I think where are the team stats? I'm just trying to kind of find the team stats. थोड़ा here. Sorry, my bad. Because this gives you much better context of where they stand. Forget football rating. So obviously they have to be last. Forget that again. Goals per match 14th. Just chill. Goals conceded per match देख तू 18th. 1.6. Look at clean sheets. Obviously they're last. There's no surprise there. But look at the XG जो हमने बात की, 24.9, just behind UA as of yesterday. Just look at this. तूने पर्सपेक्टिव में बोल दिया how many chances they're missing. Shots on target per match, मतलब ठीक है, मतलब वो लोग एक पॉइंट तक क्रिएट करते हैं and on target whatever it is they f up. Big chances में look, they're fourth. Inter obviously first with 62 and we have our own story but not relevant to this video. तो अभी ये देख, big chances missed. And I know Inter और बाकी सब में बहुत बड़ा गैप है, but just look at 28 and sitting last on the table. Just imagine. And again, if I'm not wrong,
before we started recording, I was looking at Fiorentina's shot math. And if you look at the chances they're missing, they're from 3 yards out, 4 yards out.
Yes, it's all comical. And to ये देख, XG conceded, अभी तू ये देख, उल्टा side, flip side, 23.4. Interceptions तो वो natural है, होना ही है, because the way they have to play, it will happen. But you start looking at this, penalties conceded, 4th, not a good look. Saves per match, again वो situation ही ऐसा कि वो लोग अपने आप को उस end में they find themselves. But look at the yellow cards. They're always constantly. ये मैं generic बोल रहा हूँ, but this actually, I'm watching their matches, it's evident. They lose their heads very easily, constantly getting unnecessary bookings, what not. They end up making the wrong decisions as a result. The numbers also kind of, Costo, as we looked at very loosely in a way, not very loosely, but in a way, loosely देखे तो भी गलत नहीं है, because it tells us the whole story, right, Costo? But it tells us things are like really bad over there. And I mean, what do you even say, right? Moisakin to इधर फिर से देख, 13 big chances missed. Like what else can you say? Like I think, as I said, numbers tell you the story. Like I have nothing else to say.
Actually, 13 most chances missed by Moisakin might be more chances than Matteo Pellegrino would actually get at Parma across a season. That's actually a joke. And the Mandragora thing, the fact that he's scoring goals is good, but I still feel like he's not the most useful player when it comes to I mean, अभी हमने बात करी कि Fiorentina don't really have that midfielder who can like burst forward apart from
Yeah,
Simon Son, who's been bad.
absolutely.
Mandragora भी वो नहीं है. Mandragora is more of a random receiver on the right side, थोड़ा half space में,
Yeah.
और वो runs बनाएगा. He's more of that, and I get it. He's offering a net positive, but to be very honest, beyond that, he is at a point where he might not offer too much value. And it's fair. Abhi he's offering value from what
Yeah. And
his best is, but again, he is still replaceable, is what I'm saying, despite the goals.
yeah. Absolutely, the whole midfield costume. That again, I know Fagioli के बारे में ये होता है fair, but it just lacks that one player, that runner or that decent quality chance creator, or forget even like that anchor type midfielder who just supports the defense, and that's been the defense has been an issue for years. But let me थोड़ा track back a bit to अभी जो क्या चल रहा है. अभी वनोली है, अभी वो लोग फिर से हारे पार्मा से. Obviously, it is the famous retiro time, जो इटली में होता है. retiro as in retreat, जब भी
Media blackout.
या जो जब भी, अगर आप ये जानते नहीं हो, जब भी कोई भी इटालियन क्लब मुश्किल फेज में जाती है तो एक रिट्रीट पे चले जाते हैं. चाहे वो अपने बेसिकली वो क्या करते हैं, वो लोग अपने ट्रेनिंग ग्राउंड में ही रहते हैं और सोते हैं, खाते पीते हैं और उधर ही रहते हैं. मीडिया नॉइज को साइलेंस कर देते हैं, या फिर वो लोग कोई थर्ड पार्टी लोकेशन में जाते हैं if the time permits, like a usual where they hold their pre-season training and whatnot to kind of take a break away. And yesterday after the match they had a press conference. Silence. They did not give a press conference either. Silence had the typical thing, whether it will work or not. Italy में assumption रहता है कि ये सब चीजें काम करती, but more often than not this usually does not work. And I just want to touch upon the fan sentiment briefly. All the Fiorentina tifosi जो भी है वो लोग सब गुस्से में है, super pissed है. Obviously I'm sure all the images will be seen right now as I say this on the video. Banners, I think Costa, you sent me the images earlier. Your Commisso out, players out. You do not give a shit about the club, is what the fans are saying. There is some fan sentiment. I just need to pull this up very quickly. Just hold on. Yeah, here. So here you have a Fiorentina journalist. I'll translate this in a minute what it's saying exactly. I have it. You can see the sentiment here. Without any magic, Fagioli is the only player close to playing what we need to. Whatever Omuzzo looks like washed. Even to be fair, again Fagioli we discussed, probably not the same. Look at the fan sentiment online. ये तो online है भाई, मतलब ये मैं सिर्फ दिखा रहा हूँ. People pissed at Moise Kean, 6 shots attempted, whatever, giving all the stats, calling him selfish. ये तो fan sentiment है जो मैंने देखा. अगर मैंने जो अभी थोड़ी देर पहले बोला कि the Fiorentina camp is in silence, they did not approach any press conferences, and also I think the fans yesterday, when the players went to the fans yesterday after the defeat to Parma, the fans said, "You go back. We have nothing to say to you." Usually चिल्लाते हैं फिर chants करते हैं, right? Costume. उन्होंने सीधा उनको वापस जाने बोल दिया basically. Like we don't even want to look at you basically. ऐसी situation आ गई है. And as you shared with me, obviously, Paratici पे तो आएंगे as we close this, but I think as you shared with me, there are some banners which I'm sure the images will show up here. It's a very bad mood. और ऐसा last time जब हुआ था was in the 92-93 season. Let me put this out कि ऐसा नहीं है कि Fiorentina relegate नहीं हुई है. Again, we'll see the image here. They've had players like Batistuta, Stefano Pioli himself was a player, Brian Laudrup, Beppe Iacchini, the famous coach with the cap who has coached them. All of these with the Fiorentina team that was cost of second in the Serie A. Same season ended up getting relegated in the 92-93 season. और जब again, I don't think we'll be able to put clips in this video, but maybe we can put images of this. जब वो लोग 92-93 में relegate हुए थे, भाई पागलपन हुआ था, दंगे हुए थे. जब वो लोग सेरिया बी में गिरे थे, नहीं सेरिया में गिर गए थे फौजिया को हराने के बावजूद. रोड पे आई थिंक स्ट्रीट्स पे लोग पागल हो गए थे. पुलिस हैड टू बी अलर्ट, लाइक देयर वर लाइक क्लैशेस, कार्स वार्स पे पत्थर वत्थर, यू नो ऑल दैट जैज जो राइट्स के टाइम होता है. ये सब हुआ था 92-93 में. एंड बिकॉज फ्लोरेंस टेक्स पैशन इन इट्स स्पोर्ट्स, लाइक इट रियली डज, एंड देयर आर पैशनेट बंच ऑफ पीपल. आप अगर जानते हो फुटबॉल का एक अलग इटरेशन, एक वायलेंट इटरेशन फ्लोरेंस में बॉर्न हुआ था बहुत सालों पहले, आई थिंक इफ आई एम नॉट रॉन्ग centuries ago. So they're very passionate about their sports, let alone their football club. And when it comes to their football club, there is no two ways about it. Let's come to couple of things more. Costume मैं Palladino का interview end में लूंगा. Let's come to the stadium issue as we wrap this. Artemio Franchi, हमने बोला it looks like a construction site, and again the images will be pulled up here. It looks really bad because जो उनका जो कुरवा है, right, जो कुरवा जहाँ अपने अल्ट्रास बैठते हैं, right, for those who don't know or for those who know as well, उनके कुरवा का नाम है, जैसे इंटर का होता है कुरवा नॉर्ड या मिलान का होता है कुरवा सूड, फियोरेंटीना के कुरवा का नाम है कुरवा फियरसोले या फियरसोले, एंड इट्स अ वेरी पैशनेट बंच, ऑब्वियसली दैट्स द हार्ट एंड सोल, एंड वो ऑब्वियसली पूरा कंस्ट्रक्शन में है, तो उधर के फैंस थोड़े इस साइड पे बैठ रहे हैं जहाँ लपके रेगुलर कैजुअल या फिर नॉन अल्ट्रास बैठते हैं, और वो दोनों मिक्स हो रहे हैं, एंड बेसिकली देयर आर नॉट इनफ फैंस इन द स्टेडियम, एंड इट फील्स लाइक इट्स it doesn't feel lively. जो आर्टेमियो फ्रैंकी का जो एसोसिएटेड है, दो लाइवली एटमॉस्फेयर, दैट्स गॉन. वो that vibrance when they make their tifo, that's not there, the energy is missing, and ऊपर से तुम खराब फॉर्म डाल रहे हो तो और भी कम फैंस आ रहे हैं, there is less noise, the players don't feel back. Basically अगर मैं आपको ये पिक्चर again will be pulled up, but if you had to visualize it, आधा स्टेडियम खाली, आधा स्टेडियम not fully भरा हुआ, और भी कम खाली, like maybe it's a bad visual. So Kostov, can you just give us an update on what is going on? I know the construction was supposed to finish by August 2026, but apparently ये 2029 तक डिले हो गया. मतलब ये मैंने पहली बार ऐसा देख रहा हूँ कि भाई 1 साल का डिले, 3 साल का डिले हो गया. मतलब ये क्या? Can you just update us on what exactly has happened there, what is going on, and yeah, how much it takes a toll on this Fiorentina team where everybody is down mentally?
There was a lot of pushing and pulling. Will there be enough financial support from the municipality? Because it's an age-old Italian problem where the municipality don't want to cede control of those venues because उनको उससे पैसा मिलता है. So the stadium construction of the so-called new stadium, the construction started, but in the middle of it, what I've been told is that the construction is taking place despite there being a guarantee of financial support from the municipality.
Yeah.
And abhi it's 2029. That is the word you're officially getting. I feel like internally it could be worse because the way the club is operating. Now, hypothetical scenario, Fiorentina get relegated. How much money do you lose out? And what's the assurance that the municipality is getting that this is a lucrative project? And in the middle of it, just to hypothesize a worse possibility, Commisso leaves. Because that's what American owners do. They're never in it for the longer run. If say Rocco Commisso leaves, what happens to the project? Your training center is already there. It's in operation. It's fine. It's good. It's a good move. But the person who started the project while battling with the governments is not even there, and Fiorentina are not even in the top flight. Where do you go from that? Will the club even have the money to finance that entire stadium while not getting support from the municipality? No. Because firstly, the European competition's money has dried out. Serie A is gone. You've lost so much money, and then you're having to lose a lot of their key players. Then you have to reinvest in the squad using that money. You have contract renewals. You have other contracts to get on once you sign players. So it could still get a lot worse because abhi, as I mentioned, the official word is 2029. But the way it's going, it could still be San Siro demolition. It's that situation, and a lot of things that happen on the pitch will impact that as well. Because this is not an isolated case where this is not the Premier League where you finish 18 but you still get to build that stadium. This is a completely different background, a completely different cultural setting to what the Premier League is. Because one, Moiskin is missing chances, but each miss could actually have a much larger impact or implication on the club's actual survival. Because this is not about that football anymore. This is about people. This is about the club's existence. Because we've seen a lot of clubs fold up due to similar problems. Not associated with stadiums, but it feels like a much bigger problem than what a lot of clubs have faced. There is too much money at stake for Fiorentina to actually go down.
But you said it right. Like, you summed it up well with the whole stadium issue. Just to add more detail to it, basically क्या हुआ है there is a funding gap basically, if I'm not wrong, of 50 to 60 million or so. And City obviously is trying to work with, they've got about 55 million in grants and government funds and whatnot, but वो जो 60 मिलियन है वो सिर्फ फर्स्ट फेज कवर करता है उनके कंस्ट्रक्शन का, विच इज द कुरवा जो मैं बात कर रहा था, कुरवा फिएसोले का कंस्ट्रक्शन. देन द सेकंड फेज, Commisso has expressed willingness to give 60 million or so, but he wants more things in return, that मेरे को डिजाइन पे कंट्रोल चाहिए स्टेडियम के, मेरे को फ्यूचर रेवेन्यू चाहिए, बिकॉज आप जानते हो ऑब्वियसली इन इटली मोस्टली क्लब्स डू नॉट ओन देयर ओन स्टेडियम. एंड ये म्युनिसिपल काउंसिल ने ऑब्वियसली रेजिस्टेंस के साथ मीट किया, सो देयर इज दैट. देन फेज 3 का कमर्शियल टचेस ये वो, सो ये सब पकड़ के सब डीले हो गया. एंड बेसिकली जैसे हमने बोला, एक रबल कंस्ट्रक्शन साइट की तरह दिखता है वो पूरा फियोरेंटीना स्टेडियम. अगेन यू विल सी द इमेजेस एंड व्हाट नॉट, एंड this seriously impacts Italy's bid in the larger picture for the 2032 Euros, because Florence is a city that wanted to be involved, and इसके लिए ये bid के लिए these countries are supposed to submit their technical and financial guarantees to UEFA by July 2026. Yeah, so that doesn't really help our cause, help their cause, because अगर तुम जुलाई 2026 तक तुम्हें स्टेडियम की गारंटीज देनी है, ये इट जस्ट फील्स इम्पॉसिबल, राइट? बिकॉज तुम, एंड दैट बेसिकली हैज किल्ड द एटमॉस्फेयर, इट अफेक्ट्स द प्लेयर्स, इट्स क्वाइट ऑब्वियस. एक जो मैं बोलना चाहता हूँ अगेन फैन सेंटिमेंट के बेसिस पे, जो मैंने स्कॉटलैंड का इंसिडेंट बोला, सॉरी दैट वाज so that was more to do with, I just remember what it was exactly as we were talking. It was more to do with the players under Italiano when they played Hearts in the Conference League. So that time they ravaged the Hearts away dressing room, because you know they were very, you know that someone like a Luca Ranieri is ill disciplined. But basically, point being, many fans had suggested at the time ki they, you know, this bunch, there is something not right with it, they're a bit ill disciplined, they, as you said, ki they do not really probably care about the club. And probably, I think मैंने ये आर्टिकल में पढ़ा था, now I'm putting two and two together, that some Fiorentina journalist used this as a reference, saying that you know, like things like this is what is wrong with the club, with the players, whatnot. They don't really care, they're a bit insolent and whatnot. And आपने देखा कि fans have had it, कि you had that 20-minute strike in that before the 5-1 win against Udinese, you had a 20-minute strike where the fans did not come to the stadium, and उसके बाद आए. So things are not good. हमने स्टेडियम इशू की बात की, हमने पलाडिनो की बात की. मैं क्विकली एक उसका इंटरव्यू दिखाना चाहता हूँ. Then we close with what is next for Fiorentina, and yeah, that should be it. Let me just pull this interview up where Palladino basically talks about what exactly happened. He gives us his version. Why is this not translating? Just give me 1 second. Yeah. So Palladino reveals leaving. ये दिख रहा है, right, Kostub?
हाँ.
Palladino reveals that leaving Florence, I had different visions. I made a bet with Moise Kean. उसने बोला है कि I had no contact with other clubs when I left Florence. Galliani Monza में था. I agreed on everything. It didn't work that way elsewhere. Many called me crazy, but yeah, as we said, इसने 2 साल renew किया था. And basically, what is Palladino's version here? I see football as a puzzle, Kostub. All the pieces have to fit together for it to work. I'm proud of the work we did in Florence, but the conditions for us to move forward together were no longer there. Our ideas and visions were too different. And उसका जैसे हमने बोला, extend किया. He says he remembers that day very well. I was pleased, but thinking about it with a cool head. Obviously, I felt like staying was no longer an option. I'd be carrying that feeling around for a while. मतलब things were building up, Kostub. मतलब I think obviously I think Fiorentina का वही vibe है कि जब things build up होती है, एक negative feeling आता है. Unfortunately, it ends badly, and we've seen it happen with players as well, right? I've never been tied to money or contracts in my career. I had nothing when I decided to leave Fiorentina, and time has proven it. In fact, I didn't even reply to messages for a week. And उसका version Kostub hold up कर रहा है, because it's not like he took a job instantly and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
And I think it also confirms what I said earlier, कि players really missed him. Everybody wrote to him. Again, this translation issue, apologies for that. Just give me 1 sec. Yeah, then everyone wrote to him. They weren't expecting it. I've only spoken to my staff and directly to the club. I have to say the video calls and messages. See, exactly. He's confirmed this, all of this. So it tells you उसका बहुत बड़ा impact था, obviously. And again, he says the best day in Florence, wins against the big three, and it tells you the impact he had, right? उसने बड़े wins दिए, उसने बड़े moments दिए. And obviously this was before he signed for Atalanta as their coach. And how did he transform Moise Kean? This is where that element comes in, Kostov, of how he really
The friendship part.
Yeah, the friendship part. He had a bet set at 15. He won it. Moise was a spark. I already wanted him at Monza, and he was the first name I mentioned along with technical director Goretti, जो obviously अभी Fiorentina में है. And yeah, I I guess, uh, I guess you know what it tells you. Obviously, it just tells you that Palladino should have stayed. Matlab, they should have done everything to keep him, and they fumbled the bag. Everything went wrong. But Costo, lastly, we close in the next 5 minutes or so. What is next for Fiorentina? We have heard links that Fabio Paratici is going to be the head of football at Fiorentina. उनका स्पोर्टिंग डायरेक्टर ऑलरेडी है जिसका नाम है रॉबर्टो गोरेटी, मैंने जैसे थोड़ी देर पहले बोला. बट फाबियो पाराटिची जिसका ऑब्वियसली जो फॉर्मर यूवे था, वर्क विद बेपे मरोटा, इज अ बिग नेम इन इटालियन फुटबॉल. Is he necessarily like a great at what he does? Very polarizing figure because he's made a lot of mistakes. Obviously, recently he's still employed by Tottenham where he just served a ban. And Fiorentina, I think it reeks desperation. Maybe he will do a good job. I don't know. But तू जानता ही जब वो under Marotta था, that was his best spell. When once Marotta left, he started fumbling the bag. He had weird incidents like he once had a transfer list and he left that in a restaurant and people got a look of it like silly. And this just reeks of desperation because Fiorentina is turning to a guy that is just serving a ban. There are so many doubts about him as well. Ex-UA, so that is going to upset Fiorentina fans. You know the UA Fiorentina relationship is very sour. They hate each other, obviously. क्या बोलता है? Because it looks like Fabio Paratici is going to come in and he's not sure about keeping Manoli as the coach, and Manoli ka last game might be Cremonese if he loses especially, but even if he wins, Paratici wants like apparently either to get Pioli back, which obviously we were having a laugh about, or get a high profile coach. But the question is, which high profile coach will come to Fiorentina at such times? Why will a high profile coach come to Fiorentina? So your 2 cents on what do you think will happen, and do you think getting Paratici is the way to go forward?
I feel like at a point where the situation is already very unstable, making another big change is not quite right because it changes your entire identity in the middle of the season. And I get it. In the longer term, the Paratici appointment will probably turn out to be a good decision. If not good, then at least an okay decision, better than how things are right now. Because it's like, even at Spurs, he made some really good signings that helped them win a trophy after a while. And he's had some weird signings as well on the way, especially the early stages of the tenure. So I feel like he's good, but at the same time, he's still not that Marotta level. He's still very much someone who would require assistance from people who really do the groundwork. Who, instead of you remember that incident that you mentioned, Kivo, that note that was found at a restaurant, it had very obvious names, to be very honest. Usme koi aisa it had Milinkovic Savic when he was at Lazio. It had a lot of obvious names. And I feel like Paratici is someone who requires people around him to suggest that who bring in the right sort of footballing knowledge. I'm not sure if Fiorentina have that at this point. But I feel like it's not the right time to make another major appointment. But again, you've fired someone else, you have to replace him with someone. So I guess that's natural, but bringing a name like Paratici in, bringing an ego like Paratici in, more than anything, he will be making some major decisions so that he comes right into the job, makes those major decisions, sends out a message that, oh, this is my project. Whereas this is not the situation to flaunt your ego. This is the situation where you have to save the club. You look at what's best for the club instead of looking at what's best for your PR or for marketing yourself. There is always a risk for that because we know Paratici has been doing a lot of face saving in the last 3-4 years for obvious reasons. So he's still in that phase where he has to make an impact, where could not really do it at Spurs because of the ban. But he will come in and make bold decisions because this is where he is in his career. He can't be sitting quietly in this situation where he has a reputation to salvage, basically. And that won't do the club good, because what they need now is to just keep Vanoli at the club, let him do his thing, let him, because this squad, even if you get 20% more out of this squad, 50% more out of this squad, you will survive relegation if things go even okay, if not good. Then you will survive relegation, you will finish 17th, 16th. But what the club doesn't really need once again is another major change. So if Paratici comes in, don't change the manager. Keep him where he is. It's been only weeks for him that he came into the job, and Fiorentina are a much bigger club than what Vanoli has managed in the past as well, in terms of stature, in terms of name, and the job at hand also. So I feel like if Paratici comes in, he should be making sure that he doesn't take these drastic decisions of sacking Vanoli, keep him there. Transfers, we need those transfers, but we need obvious transfers. We don't need these Piccoli signings. We don't need these Cherendor signings. We need nailed on players who are proven in Serie A, who can make an impact right away instead of, you know, I don't know, a lot of players out there, your Anelis, your Pongracic. So the signings should be assured signings that will have an impact on the squad.
Absolutely.
Not
Absolutely.
Could be someone like Dragoshin, who's obviously been linked, who
Yeah.
I like a fair bit, who's fairly proven and a bit of a leader as well. So a signing like that, not signings that have no assurance of working out.
And then look, as we say this, as we spoke of Paratici, I was just scrolling through the news. Matteo Moretto and Cronace di Spogliatoio have reported that Fabio Paratici will indeed be the next footballing head of football of Fiorentina. Only the official announcement is missing. This just came in around 30 minutes ago, and apparently, as per Cronace, he does not intend to bring back Pioli. But in any case, अगर तू ये Gazeta का article पढ़, right? We discussed he's at a crossroads. He's considering maybe a quick interim coach like Iakini. What do they do, or should they go for a high-profile coach? But who will come? Pioli का 3 year का contract still weighs on their balance sheet heavily, right? So किसको लाए, पैसा है लाने को, that's a problem. Then they're linking again names like Paulo Sousa, who's past it. Thiago Motta, but again, Thiago Motta getting the guy is not easy. It's always very expensive. He's been rejecting jobs left, right, center. So why will he come? So it's a mess. I think the point is that the fact that they're in this situation is quite a mess. They shouldn't be in this situation, but they are. And हमने आई होप इस वीडियो को जस्टिस किया, ओवरऑल सब कंपेयर किया, वी स्पोकन हमने सब टच अपॉन किया, नॉट कंपेयर, वी स्पोकन ऑफ द प्लेयर्स, वी स्पोकन ऑफ द कोचेस, स्पोकन ऑफ द टैक्टिकल साइड ऑफ थिंग्स, मर्कातो, the ownership, the management. I don't think there's any left. The way forward, I think Costa, you're right, is ki Paratici shouldn't sack Vanoli, but I think he will regardless. Let's see. And obviously, news mein aa rahi ki he'll try to get some high-profile signings. Maybe his name will attract players, but I don't know. I don't think players will be committed to come to such a project, which is such a mess. I think it will be difficult. And I'm not sure getting Paratici is the right move. Like, I understand usko structurally badalna hai Commisso ko. First things first, he needs to get his act together, Rocco Commisso. Be honest with the fans. कुछ नहीं है सही तो might as well, the ship has anyways sailed, you might anyways get relegated, right? So you might as well just be transparent ki, this is going wrong, this is going wrong, this is going wrong. Let's see where we head next. I can't guarantee the safety of Fiorentina. I cannot guarantee the fact that we can survive. It's going to be bad. Buckle up. We'll try our best, so and so, whatever, all that jazz, and we'll see where this goes at. But Commisso is Commisso. Prade is gone. Goretti is the sporting director. Paratici comes in. Where do we go with Fiorentina? I don't know. I guess it remains to be seen. Costa, as you said, he just needs to get the profiles of players right. And who leaves? Can they convince? Can this whole management convince the existing bunch of players to just step up for the last 6 months? Difficult. अगर पहले 6 महीने में ही नहीं कर पा रहे तो last 6 महीने में like क्या ही magic want to घुमा लोगे? I mean, it just looks impossible, right? Or improbable rather, cost from the outside. But you never know. Football has funny stories to offer. But yeah, here we are. I think 28th of December 2025, sitting with each other discussing Fiorentina, who sit last in the table on the Serie A. Things are looking bleak. What happens next? We don't know. Remains to be seen. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I mean, it has gone a bit long. We didn't intend for it to be this long, but I hope you guys do give it time and watch it. Please do follow Costo on Twitter and Instagram. I will plug it. I'll put all the links below. He again is the editor in chief of Get Italian Football News. He works for different outlets. He makes reels as well on football content. So please do give him a follow on Twitter and Instagram. I'll link it below. Please do follow Ajay Bhai's channel, AM Talk Sports, Ajay Menon Talk Sports, and please do like, share, and subscribe to Calcio Charcha. Obviously, we are on the road to 3K. We've been working very hard. कैपुचिनो पे चर्चा की सीरीज हमारी जस्ट खत्म हुई है, so please do follow us, please spread the word, please keep showing all your love and support, because for such stories, as much support as you show, it just helps us that much more. And obviously, hope you guys had a good Christmas, hope you guys enjoy the new year. Costo, anything you want to say before you go as I close this?
No, I guess just the fact that there's a lot coming up. I'm trying to look at individual players. That stuff will obviously go up on Culture Charcha as well. So stay tuned for that.
And thank you for coming on, Costo. Thank you for taking the time. Obviously, it's a Sunday, but thank you. We always appreciate you taking the time and coming out. And hopefully, for you as a Fiorentina admirer, things get better. Maybe they'll create history in a sense of being the first ever club to survive with such a terrible record. But yeah,
there is history to be made both ways.
Exactly. It doesn't look good. Things look bad, and you feel for the fans in such cases more than anything. But yeah, thank you guys. हमेशा के लिए, हमेशा जैसे join करने के लिए. We always appreciate the support. We'll see you guys very soon. Ciao, ciao. Happy New Year and enjoy your holidays.